Well, hello everyone. My name is Alexei Lazaryev, and I'm the Director of Product Management at Network Automation. I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. We're very excited to have such a large turnout. I will be your host for this exciting webinar as we discuss how cloud automation can create new opportunities and streamline existing IT and business processes for organizations of all sizes across all vertical markets. Now, as part of this webinar, we are giving away 2 Kindle ebooks from Amazon.com to a couple of lucky attendees. So just so you know, the winners of the Kindle ebook will be notified by end of day Friday Pacific Standard Time. Let me now introduce our guest speakers. With us, we have Glenn O'Donnell, Senior Analyst at Forrester Research, and Graham Taylor, Chief Technology Officer at Network Automation. Now, before we begin our presentation, I'd like to briefly touch on the benefits of cloud adoption. The world of computing is adapting and changing from a more traditional on-premise IT model where you keep buying servers, PCs, and software licenses as your business grows to a hybrid-based computing model. Now, cloud computing is a cost-effective solution. It simply frees up budget. It is also a scalable solution. With Amazon Web Services, for example, you can automate the provisioning of a new EC2 instance in a matter of hours, if not minutes. So just imagine if you try to do that in your own data center. Cloud computing is also mobile. For example, a CRM, collaborative applications, document storage, travel, and other important workloads can be accessed by smartphones, tablets, as well as more traditional laptop computers. So as you can see from the list, cloud adoption has many different advantages to organizations aside from the obvious cost savings. Now, in summary, cloud adoption puts you at a winning advantage. And when it comes to adoption, we'd like to find out what your objective is for today's webinar. So shortly, a poll will appear on your screen. Okay, so please take a moment to select the answer that best describes where you are at in your cloud adoption. So the options include you're considering cloud adoption and want to learn more about cloud computing best practices. You're in the midst of a cloud deployment and are looking for recommendations on what to do next. Or you've already deployed to the cloud and want to find out how automation technology can improve your cloud operations. Well, and the result poll shows, amazing, that 77% of you are considering cloud adoption and want to learn more about cloud computing best practices. Well, that's actually that's great. So whether your data center is currently on-premise, as you know, already deployed in the cloud, or perhaps you've adopted a hybrid cloud environment, our webinar today will give you tips and shed some light on how to streamline business and IT processes using automation technology. Now, our first speaker is Glenn O'Donnell. Okay. Just give me 1 second while I'll transfer the presentation over. So Glenn O'Donnell, who's been a leading voice in the automation world for many years. He specializes in data center automation and is a co-author of the CMDB Imperative, a book on CMDB best practices. Now I'd like to welcome Glenn O'Donnell to discuss cloud automation.
Well, thank you very much, Alexei, and thanks everybody for joining today. Happy to discuss this whole concept of automation. It's a topic that really has kind of captured most of my attention these days, and certainly all of my time. So I don't think I have control to drive, so either if I can get that control or somebody can drive for me, that'd be great. But anyway, you know, there's all this talk about cloud, as Alexei mentioned, that, you know, a lot of confusion as well. But, you know, what do you need to get to cloud? Well, you need a lot of different things, including automation. If you look at any of the cloud providers that are out there, you know, the commercial cloud providers that we all know about and many we don't know about, they're delivering services, but there's when you go in and you request a service to be provisioned, there's not a single human being involved in that transaction. Everything that happens behind the scenes is 100% automated. And that's really kind of one of the keys that we got to get to. If you want to build your own cloud-like infrastructure, your own cloud-like services, you need to do that. And the real message here is that cloud is not about a technology discussion. I know we're all in IT, we're all geeks. I'm a geek myself, trust me. We want to get wrapped up in the technology side of it, but in reality, cloud is a business model. It's a modified business model of something that already exists. So, your company, the people that pay your salary, they're trying to do things and be adaptive in the market to try to gain competitive advantage by exploring cloud-type services. So they don't radically change the business model, but they enhance the business model through cloud. Next slide, please. And what you get out of that is certainly more flexibility in going about what you want to do. But as I said earlier, you don't do this without automation. If you have to get a single human being involved, this isn't cloud. It's something else. It's standard old hosting with a twist. And cloud computing is a much more highly evolved version of that, admittedly. But the key here is that it's self-service and it's highly automated. Next. And when we talk about automation, what does that really mean? Well, I show here a model that I've published that describes kind of these three main categories of automation. Now, a lot of the discussions we've had around automation have really focused on this first bubble up in the upper left side of this ring, task execution. The task execution is essentially, I need to do something. I can do it manually, but I want a piece of software to do it for me, or some other apparatus, if you want to use the official automation term. It's some apparatus or some mechanized apparatus. In this case, it's software. And so good examples here would be, patch management. I want to distribute patches. I want to do software distribution. I want to do server provisioning. I want to make a change to the network router. These are all tasks that we can now execute with automated tools, and we can do so pretty reliably. Many of these corners of the market have become pretty mature. So good candidates here are anything that's repetitive. You don't want to do repetitive things manually. Find anything you do often and find a way to automate it if at all possible. The third category here or the second category at the bottom is what I call process flows. Now, assume that you do all of these tasks, whether they're manual or automated in execution of themselves. You want to have some way to put a process in place. Maybe it's a change management process. That's a good example of one that has become pretty common. And I want to make sure that I follow that process to the letter. I'm going to dot the I's and cross the T's as I go along. I want to make sure I do this, that, and in the appropriate sequence. And I want to have decisions along the path. Do I turn left, turn right? Do I do this or do that? Or do I go, take a loop back to a previous point in the process? These are all things to consider when you're talking about the process flow category. And as we really put our operations into practice, and we want to make the processes themselves more reliable and more quick to execute, we're going to need something in that category so that we can kind of glue the various tasks together in their appropriate sequence. And a number of tools have existed for some time, and a lot more hitting the market now around workload automation, which is what we used to call job scheduling. It's gotten a lot more sophisticated. Runbook automation is a common term. It's not one that I care for that much, but it is pretty common. And you'll run into these tools as you look at the market options out there. But the key here is it's all about automating the flow of the process. Now those two together will tell us how to do something, how to adapt, how to take some action, how to run the process. But we still need to answer the question of when and why do we take action. And that's the domain of this third category, decision triggers. It's monitoring, but it's monitoring with a twist, or monitoring on steroids, if you want to look at it that way. It's looking at your performance and availability and configuration information, but it's doing the analytics on it, so that I can make a more intelligent decision as to what all that stuff means. Because if I'm just looking at pretty charts and graphs, it doesn't really tell me a whole lot. I need to be able to take action based upon that stuff, and the analytics will help me do that. It's getting too complex to do that in our minds. Even our best and brightest people can't handle that anymore. So we need some automated tools to do that. This is a fairly new and fairly immature corner of the market, so we see that there will be a lot of action there. So next slide, please. Now, as we take this automation model and we apply it to cloud, I kind of take my, as I call it, the automation wheel on the left, and I've kind of mapped it into a more complete model for cloud automation. So you see the same three categories: task execution, process flows, decision triggers. Again, forming a circle because they are all part of the same cycle. But as we now start pulling these things together and start cross-pollinating between these three categories, this is when we start getting to the point where we can have some more robust cloud automation. Now, at the center of all of this is a CMDB, or as we should more accurately refer to it in the ITIL v3 context, it's the Configuration Management System, or CMS. A point that I certainly highlight, Carlos and I, my co-author, highlight in the book. Even though it's called the CMDB imperative, it's pretty apparent when you read the book and you talk to us that we really hate the term CMDB, and nobody would like to see it killed off more than we would. But the purpose of the CMDB is profound because it's the information that helps us drive our decisions. It's consumed by the decision triggers. It guides the execution of the tasks, and it helps us define what the processes are and the process flows. It also helps us as we start building our models of configuration data and other information. It gets to this point of a service catalog, and service catalog is really important to the whole discussion of cloud because the service catalog defines what it is we're actually building. You know, what is it we're trying to provide here with these cloud services? Well, that's defined in the service catalog, and the service catalog has not only a description of what it is, but also pricing information so that I can go in and make the right decision based upon what the pricing is, what's economically the right choice for me. It has all of the information inside that tells me how I build this service. What are the individual building blocks or the individual component parts that I use to build that service? So that's why it gets involved with the CMDB. And of course, underneath it all is all of the nuts and bolts, all of those parts that we need to build it. So the managed elements are going to be a whole bunch of different things that we need to orchestrate as we're looking at driving this automated view of the world. Next slide. So the service catalog, as I said, it tells us what we can automate, you know, what it is that we're actually going to kick off. If you go to any of the cloud providers, the commercial cloud providers, you'll get a menu of things, and you'll be able to plug in your different things that your different characteristics of the service you want, and then you click the button and off it goes. Well, that's, you know, that menu of choices that you get, just like a menu in a restaurant, tells us what is available. If it's not on the menu, you can't have it in the restaurant. If it's not in the service catalog, you either can't have it as a cloud service or it becomes something that's custom, and therefore it's not really a cloud. As I said, the CMDB, or really the CMS, is the information that we use to make the decisions. This is everything from standard configuration items as we used to think of in the CMDB, but it's a very different structure, and it's actually evolving to take on different types of information, including performance data and process models. And a whole bunch of other things, policies. It's going to get much more sophisticated and, yes, more complex. So don't try to deal with this on your own. Look to your vendors to help you deal with that. And as we look at the services, as I said, they're built from the building blocks. But those building blocks themselves are often built from other things. So we need this chain, kind of like you have with a supply chain, a chain of connections and a chain of abstractions that tell us how we can break this thing down to its atomic parts. Now, with cloud, a lot of times these managed elements are infrastructure components. It's servers, it's virtual servers, it's network components, it's storage entities, and so on. But as we go forward, we'll be building our cloud services not from infrastructure, but from other services that will be built upon infrastructure. So again, the supply chain or this service chain is a critical thing to think about as we move on with this. Next slide. And then as you're trying to build out your cloud automation, you got to think of what model of cloud is it that you're after. Am I going to use a public cloud service, Amazon, Rackspace, all the usual suspects in that marketplace, or am I going to build this so-called private cloud, something that's completely within my walls? Well, in reality, you're going to wind up with a hybrid of the two. In fact, you're going to wind up with a hybrid of internal cloud, external cloud, and good old-fashioned infrastructure. So the ability for you to build out how that looks, build the model for that, and then orchestrate all the moving parts is really critical to you making success with any kind of cloud type of situation. So we look at this, and there's a build, so please click through the build. If we look at this and assume that the public cloud provider is using a similar model, because they are, they wouldn't be a cloud if they didn't do it like this. So we want to kind of replicate the model that is being used by them and build that internally. So just as they have task execution, we need task execution. Just as they have process flows, we need process flows. And please click through the build. And the underlying parts that we're going to be using, these underlying building blocks or components upon which we build our cloud service are going to be somewhat different, because in the public cloud, they're building their things, their managed elements, our infrastructure. Our managed elements, some of it's going to be infrastructure, but some of it's going to be these cloud services that we're getting from the external side. Another build, please. So if we look at how our model is evolving on the right, we do have a mixture of good old-fashioned infrastructure, but also cloud services that we're getting from other places. One more build, please. And if we have a task that we're going to be executing upon one of these cloud service components, there has to be a link out to the cloud provider. And this is based upon web services. So you can go in and provision these services from the cloud provider through their web interface. But as we move forward, our own internal automation systems will be calling on these things on their own. And that'll be all transparent to the people who are using these internal cloud services, and that's the way it needs to be. Next slide. And this next slide has some builds, so you can just build them out. But if we look at cloud, there's more to it than just the technology, as we've been saying. You have a number of things that you need. First of all, you need a standard platform. You're not going to build a cloud if you've got Unix, Linux, AS400, Windows, and 4 different versions of each of those as your platforms. You want to standardize on that stuff as much as you possibly can. Again, the commercial cloud providers do that because they can offer just insane levels of productivity and capability, because every single machine in their server farm is a cookie cutter configuration. Every single one of them is exactly like the next one. And you get a lot of flexibility, a lot of simplicity out of doing that. Then you need to standardize your processes. A good place to start with that is ITIL. And not that you want to be religious about ITIL, but there's a lot of common sense in what ITIL offers us as a way of having common process structure. So if you're going to have a change management process, do it exactly the same way every time. Do it exactly the same way, whether you're dealing with a mainframe, a Unix server, a cloud system, your own VMware instances. Regardless, it's all the same thing from a process perspective. And then, of course, you want to automate all of this. I don't have to belabor that. That's the whole point of this discussion here, is the automation side. But the automation tools merely accelerate the execution of the process. So that's why you got to get your process down first. If you have bad processes, you're just going to do bad things faster. So you want to do good things faster. Get the processes straight, and the automation will help you move that forward. You want it to be self-service. If somebody's going to be doing this stuff, they don't want to have to pick up the phone and say, I need a server instance set up for me. They want to do it themselves. Or increasingly in the future, we'll have automation systems do that for them. So that's an absolute essential element of any cloud. And then we have to have the granular accounting. One of the things that makes cloud a cloud is that I'm not locked into a contract. I may want to fire this thing up for 3 hours, and that's it. And I pay by the hour. So that granular accounting has to be in place. So I have better visibility into what I'm getting and what I'm going to be paying for it, because that's going to drive my decisions on what I do with this thing called the cloud. And at the center of it all is the configuration management system. It is the core set of data, the core set of information that drives our decisions across all of these things. Next slide, please. And this slide has some builds as well. But let's take another look at this hybrid cloud model. Hybrid cloud is not just cloud. It's all of the different things that we have. Even though cloud changes a lot of the way we're going to look at the world, it doesn't change everything. As I like to keep saying, I'll be dead before the mainframe is. So the mainframe is always going to be there. Good old-fashioned infrastructure, traditional data center infrastructure will always be there. So if we take our business service, and I show this as a honeycomb of a bunch of different things put together because that's how business services are built. They're building blocks. We can do this in our traditional data center, but next build. But if we take that and put it into a cloud service, we want to build this thing called the internal cloud, next build. But if we really look at how this is all going to play out, we're actually breaking this service apart and taking different pieces and spreading them out to the places where they are the best fit. And in some cases, the best fit is going to be in that internal cloud service that we've built. In some cases, those things are going to sit outside in a commercial external cloud provider. And in some cases, it's going to be on good old-fashioned hardware, maybe even the mainframe. But this is transparent to the people who are using the service. They don't know where this stuff is, nor should they have to. But we have to ensure that it's seamless by building a model that describes how these things fit together and building the linkages between the internal cloud, the external cloud, and the traditional data center through a set of web services connections. So that if I'm going to be taking my service that I've defined here, and I'm going to hand off from one component of the service to another, that handoff has to be negotiated and controlled through web services. And there are standards that have evolved for doing this kind of thing. Some of them are de facto standards, proprietary standards, but there are some real standards coming along as well that are going to help us do that more seamlessly. Next slide. So all of this has to work. All of the way these various things communicate and the way these various things work together really comes down to the orchestration of that service. And the process automation is increasingly being recognized as a way of automating this kind of set of connections and doing the actual orchestration. So I have a little model here that I've built just to demonstrate what I'm talking about. If we can run through the first build, please. We've got these various tasks that are running, and these little yellow balls are actually revolving inside the blue balls, but it's not playing well on the webinar here. So we can just run through the builds on this slide. We've got a task that's running, and then we kick off from that task to the next task, and that starts executing. And then we get to the decision point on the next build, where we decide, okay, what are we going to do? It's going to go and decide we're going to go to the upper task, not to the lower task, based on conditions that are driving that decision trigger. So, this is kind of how the various things work together, and it's building a good model of that process and having the hooks so that we can link these various tasks together that's going to enable this. And this is how it's done. This is how real clouds are built. Some of it may be hard-coded. Some of it may be using commercial solutions. Depends on the provider. But if you're trying to build this on your own, don't build a cloud on your own, so-called private cloud or the hybrid cloud. Don't try to write this on your own, because there are technologies available that'll do it for you. Next build. So, process automation is really the difference between having a simple utility of different pieces that are connected and having true service orchestration. It's automating that flow, as we kind of demonstrated here, to make sure that this is a real orchestrated service. Next build. And if you want to achieve real high productivity and true quality, you've got to have that service orchestration in place, because you'll get productivity out of the fact that this is automated and human beings aren't doing it. So you can do more things with the people that you've got. Do more with less. How many times have you heard that? I've been in IT 31 years, and I've heard it since day one. But it's got real teeth now, and people are mandating that we do more with less. It also increases the quality. We in IT, let's face it, we tend to be pretty sloppy in how we go about doing things. The fact that we have to keep going back and doing things over, or customers come to us, irate because what we said we would do wasn't done properly. That has contributed to a really nasty reputation for IT as, basically a sloppy bunch of goofballs that just like playing with technology. And we have to change that. We change that by offering good quality services. We change that by getting productivity. And, putting in place true service orchestration is going to get us to both of those goals. Next slide. And process flows, as I said earlier, there's a number of things that fall into the category of process flows. Process flows themselves are evolving, and you can run through the builds on this slide as well. But process flows, way back when I started in IT, we did a lot of scripting, and we still do a lot of scripting. And there's nothing wrong with scripting as long as you don't base everything upon that. We're always going to need scripts. Well, lo and behold, one day somebody said, hey, we can write a program that's going to essentially do a lot of the stuff that we're doing, but doesn't require us to script it. So they came up with job scheduling. And job scheduling evolved into workload automation. Workload automation is therefore evolving into IT process automation. And IT process automation will continue to evolve into the next phase of whatever it is that it's going to be called. But if we run through the last build on the slide, what's happening is we're seeing a convergence of process discussions. And this is driven by a lot of the interest in this concept that IT is the business, that IT processes and business processes are coming together and essentially being the same thing. So if IT is the business, why should we differentiate between IT processes and business processes? Certainly there will be different people involved in some of these, but the basic mechanisms are the same. So we believe that IT process automation is going to merge with business process automation, and whatever you put in place to take care of one of these should take care of the others. That's a continuing evolution, but we are seeing indications that that's actually happening. Next slide. And what all of this automation is leading us to is something that I just recently published around this concept of an industrial revolution for IT. Anytime you take something, some process, and you highly mechanize it, think of the way manufacturing has evolved in agriculture. We've achieved levels of productivity in both of those domains in ways that are just astounding. The next industrial revolution is with enterprise IT, and we can go to the next slide. Why this is happening is because we've got a number of things that are happening, a number of forces that are being thrust upon IT that are taking us to that next industrial revolution. We've reached a level of complexity with virtualization that has just completely blown us out of the water. And virtualization is really the key technology that's done that. Where is the server? What is a server? God knows how to answer these questions anymore. So complexity has gone through the roof. That's requiring us to put more focus on the process. So IT service management, ITIL, have really become the central focus of the process revolution. We got to stop doing things in pockets. We got to stop doing things in a sloppy way. We've got to get more disciplined about it. We have IT consumerization. Everybody wants to bring their iPads, and they want to be able to access the corporate applications from anywhere, the bedroom, the airport, wherever the case may be. And that's forcing us to change a lot of things with how we approach IT. And the real force is that business leaders are demanding more. We've gone through an economic downturn that was unprecedented in my lifetime. It's the first time that GDP per capita has decreased in my life, and I'm 50 years old. So that's pretty remarkable. Now, what business leaders learned from that is do more with less. Hey, it turns out we can. So we're never going back to the old ways. Business leaders are saying, all right, you guys better get used to this new world order and do things differently. And one of the things we're doing differently is cloud, and it is significantly altering the rules of how we approach IT, what it means to be in IT, and what IT itself even means. So this is forcing us into a new world order where we have to be more of an industrialized operation than the cast of technology artists that we've been in the past. Next slide. Now, yes, the service orchestration is finally real. That's helping us here. So now we can go to the next slide. Now, you may have heard the quote, change the people or change the people. Well, the Industrial Revolution is forcing us to change the people. And in the context of that, it's either change how we do things or we change the people themselves. IT, as we've come to know it, is dead, and we're never going back to it. Again, it doesn't mean we're throwing out the mainframe. It doesn't mean we're throwing out the people necessarily. But the old model of how we went about doing this has changed forever. And as we do this, we see that many of the skills that we've come to value in the past are diminishing. We're not going to need as many network experts. We're not going to need as many Linux experts and so on. We're still going to need some of them, but we don't need an army of them because, frankly, a lot of what they do is grunt work that can be automated and should be automated. Now, as times change and we start drifting away from such a heavy dependence on those types of people, we realize that we're going to need new skills. Does that mean we need new people? Well, that depends on if we, whether or not we can take the existing people and retrofit them and retrain them into the new world. But one way or the other, we've got to change the way we do things and the skills that we're going to need. So new skills like, business type skills, people with financial capabilities, these are going to become more important, and I'll highlight some of the examples of the new roles on the next slide. But we're also going to be looking at new sourcing models. As I said earlier, we may not want to do all this stuff ourselves. There may be others who can do this. You're going to look to other providers, cloud providers, outsourced providers. There's this kind of fragmentation of capabilities, and we're going to seek where we get those capabilities, just like a car manufacturer. I may build the cars, but I don't build the engines. I don't make the tires. I get those from somebody else. And that same kind of model is going to have to play forward in how we approach our IT services. And, this is a world that's constantly changing. The organization structure will change, and it's going to continue to change. If we don't adapt to that change, we're dead. And that highlights one of the key elements that we have to face, and that is if you're a person that doesn't like change, this is a new world that you're not going to be very comfortable with. So IT may not be your thing if you don't like change. Now, I had that quote on there from Einstein because I think it really applies well, that The significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. So that's kind of the mantra that we're living by in IT today. So some of the new roles that are emerging, you notice only some of these are technical. A business relationship manager has become a new role, a very important role as the liaison between IT and the business. Think of these people as your sales and marketing people within IT. If you're thinking IT as a business, well, doesn't every business need sales and marketing? Somebody's got to work with the customers to make sure that we're delivering what they want, because we can't assume what they want. We have to talk to them. We also have a growing need for automation architects and automation engineers. Every time something gets automated, it creates a market for people to build the automation. When the robotic welders started showing up in the automotive assembly lines in the 1970s, that created a great opportunity for people to build robots and maintain the robots and program the robots and all those other things. And that's a fairly geeky pursuit. And it kind of gets to one of the transitional elements as people become less and less geek focused, or as the organization does. What happens to the geeks? Well, the geeks can become the automation architects. Be the automator, not the automated. It's a great opportunity for people with those geeky aptitudes. We also need people to design the services, systems engineering types of things. How do I get the various parts and pull them together into something that's meaningful? We need people to manage those services, just like you have a product manager in a product organization. And as we look at sourcing these capabilities from multiple places, we need vendor managers, somebody who can work with the various providers and negotiate with them. And we need process people. We need people with the ITIL certifications. So the bottom line is, with the next build, we do need some new skills. It doesn't mean we get rid of the old skills altogether, but we're going to need more of these new skills and less of the old skills as we move forward. Next slide. So in summary, real clouds, and if you want to get to that cloud dream, you got to have it 100% automated. The commercial providers have to be 100% automated or they're not in business. In fact, you're going to see probably, not probably, I think definitely a shakeout within the cloud service providers because there's just too many of them. And they will differentiate based on some of the things we're talking about. So pursue a pragmatic model and timeline for automation. Obviously, you got to automate what you're doing, but you're not going to automate everything overnight. So take a look at your repetitive tasks. Attack those first. Put in place some process automation because that's going to yield benefits very quickly whether you're automating the tasks or not. And that's one of the reasons we see that as one of the growth areas within automation. A lot of people, inquiring with us about that very topic. Standardize everything you possibly can. The more standardized your building blocks, the better you're going to be because simplicity is a wonderful thing. We have to abandon our love affair with complexity. We in IT love complexity because that's what we thrive on. Well, guess what? It's burying us all. Even the best and brightest, even the geekiest among us, really can't comprehend the complexity anymore. So we have to simplify as much as we possibly can through standardization. Look at object models, within the tools that reflect reality. What I mean by this is this whole CMDB discussion isn't about having a big monster database. It's about having software models within the tools, models that can reflect reality. So if you're looking to modify a virtual server, the tool has to know what that virtual server looks like so it can modify things appropriately and then update the model. So those models become critical to the execution of all of this. Coordinate all of your automation with, internal, external, regardless. You've got to have all your different parts hooked together and truly orchestrated so that you can deliver full services. Again, this pertains to cloud services or anything else. You've got to have the automation, orchestrate these things together. And the process flow tools are really the glue to bringing all of that together. So this really is driving us into a new revolution, a new industrial revolution for IT. Get ready for it. Change your skills, change your approach, and you will thrive. If you don't, you won't. And again, look at history. As we went through this industrial revolution, new companies came along and succeeded at the expense of those old school companies that didn't change. And the same thing is going to play out here. So get ready for the change. It's going to be a wonderful new world if you're ready for it, and I suggest you get ready. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Glenn. So before we continue with Graham, I'd like to put up another poll. So if you could take a second to answer the questions. And the poll asks, what cloud-based infrastructure as a service solution is your organization using? And the options include Amazon Web Services, Rackspace, or OpSource. Now I'm going to give it a few seconds, and then I'll share the poll with you guys. All right, I'm going to close the poll right now, and let's go ahead and share the results. Looks like 28% of you are using Amazon Web Services, 28% Rackspace, and 16% OpSource. Wonderful. All right, so our next speaker is Graham Taylor, Chief Technology Officer at Network Automation. He will enlighten you as to the cloud automation capabilities already inherent in the network automation products as they relate to the market research that Glenn O'Donnell has just shared with us.
Thank you, Alexi. Good morning, everybody. Thank you to Glenn for that enlightening review of the cloud market and the importance of automation in achieving cloud service orchestration. We have all heard from Forrester as to what is happening in the market and where the market is headed with respect to the cloud. We have also heard what the most important issues are that you should be considering when evaluating your organization's cloud strategy. Network automation will next inform you as to what solutions we currently provide that meet those market requirements as emphasized by Forrester. In addition, network automation will also provide you with the insight into our cloud strategy and how we plan to meet the challenges facing the market. By the end of today's webinar, I hope that you will have a very clear understanding of how our solutions will help you or your organization achieve the many benefits that automation in the cloud can deliver. As an introduction, I want to initially confirm the definition of a couple of concepts, namely a computing platform and an automation platform. What is a computing platform? According to Wikipedia, I do miss my 24-volume, 45-pound Encyclopedia Britannica when it comes to looking up meanings of words. Anyway, according to Wikipedia, a computing platform is some sort of hardware architecture and software framework that allows software to run. What then is an automation platform? There are three components to the automation of a computing platform: hardware-related automation, software framework-related automation, and network-related automation. Hardware-related automation includes provisioning and deprovisioning of hardware resources, both processing and storage resources, scalable resource utilization and resource usage optimization. Software framework-related includes secure file management services, subscription and unsubscription of application software services, data access services, both relational and non-relational database services, software integration services, such as web services, and network-related automation is the provision of secure access to all services anywhere, anytime. Now that we've provided the encyclopedic definition of these two concepts, how do these platforms differ visually? A computing platform is very much on-premise orientated from an architecture point of view, but with connectivity to externally provided applications residing at and being managed by third parties. Some examples of these external resources are EDI, FTP, websites, email services, etc. Service level agreements with these third parties determine what service level you received, when you received them, where, and how. Complex integration software was either developed in-house or licensed to ensure integration of data from these third-party applications into the on-premise managed applications and databases. So what does a traditional AutoMate BPA server implementation look like in a standard computing platform such as this? The AutoMate BPA server orchestrates the automation of all the tasks and workflows, each executing on the myriad of agents which make up the organization's computing platform. What would a typical AutoMate workflow in the computing platform of the not so long ago yesteryear look like? sales file, as an example, a sales file gets created by the CRM system. A process monitors a directory or a folder for the presence of the file. Once the process detects the presence of the file is sent via FTP to head office through a secure login to an external FTP server. The IT ops manager is notified via email if that FTP process was unsuccessful. Simultaneously, the same sales data is imported into an Excel spreadsheet, and the Excel file is also emailed to the local sales manager. In compliance with company marketing initiatives, if the daily sales total in the Excel spreadsheet exceeds a minimum threshold of, say, 100,000, the company intranet web page will be updated with a new daily sales number. If, however, the total sales number is below the minimum threshold, the business manager is alerted, indicating that there may be a problem with either the data or the update process, and the business manager can take the necessary corrective action. So this is simple automation that network automation products currently manage and provide to our clients. So how does today's computing platform look differently from yesteryear? On-premise infrastructure still exists, very much so. However, some computing platform infrastructure has now been moved off-premise into either a private cloud environment or into the public cloud environment, resulting in a hybrid platform of both on-premise and cloud resources. Not only have the hardware resources become hybrid, some software resources have also been transformed. Many software resources, such as mainframe applications, are heavily embedded into the on-premise resources and hence are not easily transformed. However, other software resources are able to be transformed and replaced by service-oriented applications in the cloud. These not only offer the opportunity of being able to exist and run in the cloud, public or private, using cloud resources as opposed to on-premise resources, but they, very importantly, allow for easy and low-cost integration of data between the various applications and databases. Okay, now that we have differentiated the cloud-related platform vis-a-vis the traditional computing platform, let's look at how network automation, through its innovative approach to automation many years ago, when we initially architected and designed our software, is now in good stead to easily support the needs of our clients as they transform from an on-premise model to a cloud-based hybrid computing platform. So none of this is new to AutoMate. Our innovative automation software. For many years, we have supported the most popular standardized protocols to access services, including HTTP, SOAP, FTP, Exchange, IMAP, POP3, recently Twitter. So in embracing the cloud, we now provide AutoMate customers with the ability to automate the on-demand enabling of computing resources when they're needed and exactly how they're needed, be those resources hardware, software, or application service related. Thus, AutoMate customers now have the best of both worlds, the ability to automate their business processes and their IT processes that are either executed on or are dependent upon on-premise resources or cloud resources, or a hybrid of cloud and on-premise resources, the most likely scenario. So let's dig a little deeper into exactly what it is the cloud offers and relate that back to our traditional computing platform. The most important benefits that the cloud offers: you get exactly what you need, when you need it, where you need it, and how you need it. So in terms of hardware, what does that mean? It allows for the on-demand provisioning and deprovisioning of hardware, both processing and storage hardware, dynamically scalable resource utilization, on-demand resource usage optimization. From a software perspective, it offers on-demand secure file management services, on-demand subscription and unsubscription of application software services, in other words, SaaS, on-demand data access services, on-demand integration services, in other words, web services. All of these services are built around a network service that provides secure access to all services anywhere, anytime. So this all sounds like that you would need an army of people to manage this, doesn't it? Not necessarily. AutoMate comes to the rescue. Before we explore how AutoMate can save the day, I do want to provide some insight to those of you who are not yet familiar with Amazon Web Services, otherwise known as AWS. Amazon Web Services is by a long way the most comprehensive and the leading cloud-based service provider in the market today. They offer a wide range of comprehensive cloud services and tools to support both private and public cloud platforms, or as Glenn referred to it, a service catalog. These services cover both hardware, software, and network resources. For example, some of the services are an automated infrastructure provisioning service, EC2, automated file management services, S3, automated software integration services, SQS, automated database management services, RDS and SimpleDB, and automated software application services, various SaaS applications. So how does AutoMate, or more accurately our AutoMate BPA server solution, enable customers to automate their IT processes and business processes in a hybrid cloud platform environment? There are a number of ways AutoMate BPA server can be deployed to achieve automation in the cloud. The first way is to have the AutoMate BPA server on-premise, just as in the traditional AutoMate implementation. The BPA server orchestrates the tasks and workflows that are executed on each of the myriad of agents that make up the computing platform. The difference, however, is that those computing platform resources do not only exist on-premise, but they also exist in a hybrid of on-premise and cloud. Thus, you can see by virtue of the original well-thought-out architecture of AutoMate, automation of processes that once used to execute on-premise but now exist in the cloud is easily portable, thereby providing automation of these processes, as well as all new processes, seamlessly, whether they execute in the public cloud, in the private cloud, or on-premise. All right, so not only is AutoMate BPA server providing the tools to provision computing resources in the cloud, which is obviously a large portion of the benefit of a cloud strategy, but it also provides the means to automate the business processes that emanate out of application services that are utilized in the cloud. In particular, for different application services such as CRM application services, for example, Salesforce.com, or ERP application services like NetSuite.com, AutoMate provides the automation of workflows, tasks, and business processes associated with these application services. In addition, AutoMate also automates the integration of these various web services. We at Network Automation believe that what's important is that the hybrid model is the reality for a long time to come. As Glenn said, mainframes aren't going to die anytime soon. Thus, our AutoMate solution is specifically designed to automate and integrate processes running both on-premise and in the cloud simultaneously. I'll shortly be showing you a number of sample use cases that highlight these automation capabilities. Before I do that, another deployment scenario that is possible with AutoMate BPA server is for the BPA orchestration server to be provisioned in the cloud. As an example, a virtual VMware server could be provisioned in an AWS cloud and the BPA server software installed on the VMware instance. Thus, the BPA server can perform its orchestration services from within the cloud, managing tasks and workflows, executing on agents that are either in the cloud or back on-premise. Okay, so let's take a quick look at a few use case scenarios just to highlight this philosophy of BPA being able to operate in a hybrid environment. Let's see where AutoMate can effectively be used to automate rather time-consuming manual procedures related to provisioning either hardware or software. In the first example, a company launches a new marketing campaign, resulting in the web traffic skyrocketing for the duration of the campaign, requiring a sudden expansion of computing platform resources. So an AutoMate task monitors the website for the number of hits per time period, say per hour, per minute, per 30 minutes. It evaluates the number of hits against a predetermined threshold. If the number of hits exceeds the threshold, the task then evaluates the server resource utilization level, such as CPU. And if the resource usage level does not exceed the threshold, in other words, the server's coping, the monitoring process continues until the point where the number of hits causes the CPU level to rise above a particular threshold. At that point, an AutoMate task, the AutoMate Amazon action, is executed, which automatically logs into AWS and provisions a new EC2 instance in the public cloud, according to a desired set of properties. Once the provision has been complete, an email, SMS, or Twitter message is sent to the IT ops manager that the provisioning has been successful. An AutoMate task thereafter executes a load balancing process to balance the load between the original web server and the newly provisioned server. The monitoring process is continued. In a second sample use case, which is more business process related, a company expands to multiple offices around the globe, requiring secure sharing of management reporting data on a 24/7 basis. An AutoMate task monitors the ERP cloud web service netsuite.com for regular production report messages from its various global production centers around the world. Concurrently, another task is monitoring the CRM web service, salesforce.com, for the daily sales report messages from various countries as they close their end-of-day business. A third concurrent process is running on an on-premise data server that receives regular foreign exchange updates from the mainframe system and makes those available on an end-of-day basis. These three concurrent processes are running, and whenever a new message is received by the monitoring web service indicating a data update is available, the AutoMate FTP action is used to execute a login process to a secure FTP server and uploads the files of data from the relevant global office to the secure FTP server. Once the FTP uploads are all complete, a second task will download the various files from the FTP server to a specific directory on the head office data server. A further AutoMate task monitors the data server directory for these files. When the files are detected, the AutoMate Excel action consolidates the data from the various files into one worksheet and emails the consolidated worksheet to the global management team. On conclusion of this process, the business process manager is notified by email of its successful completion. So this example was a hybrid of services operating in the cloud being utilized, an on-premise application, maybe mainframe-orientated, interacting with each other, and providing consolidated data without the need for human intervention in the process. A third sample use case integrates various web services to create new user records automatically in the cloud-based CRM system and to share that information with the on-premise corporate collaboration software SharePoint. The company website encourages visitors to their website to register on their website. At the same time, the company has a telesales marketing operation whose goal is to sign up customers. Any customers they sign up are added directly into the cloud-based CRM system, salesforce.com. An AutoMate task monitors the website for the execution of the registration of a new user on the website. Simultaneously, an AutoMate task monitors the salesforce.com web service for any new customer records that are created by the telesales team. When a new website user is created, the web service compares the new user details to the salesforce.com user data, in particular to identify any relationships between the website registered user and the salesforce.com user record, such as a company name. If a relationship exists, then the new registered user is linked to the existing salesforce.com record, and salesforce.com is updated via a web service. In addition, the updated data is also sent to SharePoint, and an email is sent to the account manager notifying them of the updated details. If the new registered user did not have a relationship with an existing salesforce.com record, a new client record is created automatically in salesforce.com, and a notification is sent to the sales manager of a new client. Okay, these are just a few examples of how AutoMate can be used to automate and integrate both IT and business processes, no matter where they are, be they cloud-based or on-premise. Lastly, I'd like to give you some insight into where the automation BPA server is headed. Okay. Down the road, the AutoMate BPA server will itself orchestrate as a service in a SaaS model. At that point, all orchestration services will be available on a need-to-use basis, allowing even further benefits to accrue to an organization through the adoption of cloud strategy. So what are the benefits of the cloud computing platform? In other words, how can AutoMate help you? AutoMate provides you, irrespective of your computing platform of choice, automation, whether it is on-premise platform, cloud platform, or a hybrid of cloud and on-premise platforms. It provides preservation of your existing investment. It provides an easy transition from an on-premise to a hybrid or cloud platform, where there is no loss of existing automation, where there is no need for additional automation software. Automation also provides you with a library of ready-to-go actions fully integrated into AWS, allowing you to be up and running in the cloud within hours. This allows your business scalability to immediately cope with expected or unexpected increases in demand for computing platform resources, be they persistent or spike demands. This results in large cost savings and reduced investment requirements, and a short time to market. I hope I've been able to provide you with some insight into what AutoMate can do for you now with respect to cloud computing, what those benefits are, and what our roadmap is with respect to further advancement of our automation cloud platform. Thank you very much for your time. Alexi.
Great. Thank you so much, Graham. Well, now that Graham and Glenn have provided us with some valuable information, I'd like to open up the floor to any questions you may have for Glenn or Graham. I'm going to go ahead and post some of the questions. This is for Glenn or Graham. So where is an automation solution best deployed, on-premise or in the cloud?
Well, Glenn, I'll speak to that. Best deployed. Well, it really depends. Most of the stuff has in the past been on-prem, but there's nothing really that mandates that be the case. Where technologies have to kind of put their hooks into stuff that's on-prem, it's best to have it on-prem. But other functions, it's certainly totally plausible that it cannot be offered as a SaaS offering.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, there's various decision-making processes that determine whether processes are best automated on-premise or in cloud. Obviously, the automation software that you have is a key determining factor. So we know with AutoMate clients, it's very easy for them to automate the processes that they work automating in an on-premise environment in a cloud environment. So for them, the decision to transition a process from an on-premise computing resource to a cloud resource is fairly easy to make because they don't have to consider whether the automation software can handle that transition. So it comes down to cost savings and benefits. And some of the benefits are highlighted at the end of my presentation. Those obviously come into play in that decision-making process. But we believe that that AutoMate provides a very easy transition process for customers to move processes one by one or all at once from on-premise into the cloud.
Great, thanks, Glenn and Graham. I know we're running over time, so I'm going to only ask a couple more questions. Next one is for Graham. Graham, can AutoMate help me reduce my Amazon Web Services costs?
To keep it brief, absolutely. One, I think those folks who've used cloud infrastructure services before, one downside is that you could very easily overutilize the service inadvertently. So somebody might forget to log out, or inadvertent processes occur during downtimes, which necessitate keeping the service up and running for these one-off processes. So when you implement an automation solution, you can control the use of the service, and you can very, very easily log in and log out, connect, disconnect, provision and deprovision. So your organization can set up a set of rules and controls and compliance rules to manage the use of the cloud service, the AWS service, in order to protect the organization from unnecessary expense.
Yeah, if I can just add one bit to that commentary, which is dead on, is that common sense has to prevail regardless of what services you're using. One of the problems we've had with virtualization is so-called virtual sprawl. I can spin up a virtual machine, at snap of a finger, and then I forget about it. It's sitting there consuming resources. That's not so much an issue with cloud because you put an expiration time on it, so to speak. But having some control and some governance over how you go about doing that stuff and deploying these services is going to be necessary. Common sense doesn't go out the window when we get a new model to choose from.
All right, and next question we have is Glenn, this is for you. How can automation help enforce security compliance protocols when shifting to a cloud-based infrastructure?
Well, a lot of times we hear about this security issue with cloud, and I think it's largely overblown because there are these fears that if I put it in the quote cloud, that it's going to be insecure. That certainly could be the case, but the cloud providers have a tendency to be very secure. If they're not, they're out of business. And a great example of that is Salesforce. If you're using Salesforce, your sweetest crown jewels are sitting in the Salesforce cloud. You know, all of your customer information, your sales projections, all that kind of stuff, and your competitors would kill to get that stuff. And Salesforce has not been compromised. So it's an example of that. It can be secure in the cloud. But it kind of comes back to that common sense question again. You know, can I have more control, more governance, therefore more discipline and the inherent security that comes from having some automated systems? The answer is yes, whether it's cloud or not, because it can do all the checks and balances. It can make sure that you're not changing a configuration parameter to something that's you know, going to get you in trouble. And it can run the sanity checks on what you have. PCI compliance is a good example. I can make sure all of my stuff is checked off for the PCI compliance specification pretty easily if I properly automate that. That's not something you can do if it's not automated.
Thank you, Glenn. Now, unfortunately, we're running out of time, and we received a lot of questions, so we will follow up with each one of you and via email to answer your questions. So that does conclude the Q&A for this webinar. I want to first thank Glenn O'Donnell and Graham Taylor for taking time out of their busy schedules to participate in this webinar. And I also want to thank all the attendees and the great questions that were submitted. We hope this webinar was informative and clarified any questions you may have had relating to cloud automation. For more information about the family of AutoMate products, please visit our website at networkautomation.com. Again, thank you for attending.